Due to mature subject matter, viewer discretion is advised.
Hang tight, boys! Hang tight!
Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Overnight, Tropical Storm Gordon hit the Gulf Coast, unleashing heavy rain and powerful winds of 70 miles an hour on 3 states, spawning tornadoes and kicking up heavy surf in its wake. Parts of the Florida Panhandle received more than 10 inches of rain in 24 hours.
We better get around this quickly.
In Pensacola, a 10-month-old baby was killed when a large limb from an oak tree fell on this mobile home.
Just sounded like a real huge wind.
3 tornadoes even touched down in Michigan, destroying everything in their path.
Emergency workers found the body of one man swept off a bridge near Baltimore in yesterday's massive flooding.
I do have voices in the water 100 feet off the road.
They're still looking for at least one more victim.
It's a mess. Never seen it like this.
Here in Maryland,
Hang tight, boys! Hang tight!
more than 24 swift water rescues.
The fire department is having a hard time getting to us, as you can see.
Elsewhere, stubborn storms dumped 3 to 8 inches of rain and sparked disaster declarations in 2 Pennsylvania counties. Beginning this Labor Day weekend with acts of ordinary heroism, like these people pulling a woman from her car in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania, and frightening close calls like this school bus stuck in rising waters. Everyone got out safely.
It came up pretty quick. I mean, I was shocked. This is the first time I was ever in a flood.
Kenny Osborne in Lancaster said he wouldn't have made it out of his trailer without help from rescue workers.
I lost my Harley. You can just barely see it sticking out of the water.
It's been a soggy summer in the entire mid-Atlantic. Even as the storms stop and the floodwaters recede, many here bracing for more rain.
A desperate search for the missing after a powerful earthquake hits northern Japan in the early hours of the morning, damaging towns and cutting power to millions across the island. 3 reactors at the Tamari nuclear plant were running on backup generators. Landslides were triggered in dense forests on a mountainside of the rural town of Atsumi, covering homes. A relief and rescue command center has been set up. The government's deployed thousands of troops to help with the rescue operation. The quake also shut down all transportation services, including the airport in Hokkaido. Telephone lines and mobiles are down. And as the people affected wait to hear about their loved ones, there are fears of aftershocks or even another serious earthquake that seismologists warn could strike at any time.
Oh my God, I want to go!
Exploding across the hills near the California-Oregon border, the so-called Delta Fire tripling in size. 300-foot flames burning along I-5 before leaping the interstate.
Look at that side just caught on fire! We cannot stay right here!
Trapped, this couple capturing the terrifying moments as drivers abandon their cars and big rigs catch fire. Some 45 miles of freeway shut down as the inferno closed in.
Brandon, we gotta get out and walk!
Triggering evacuations, the blaze is engulfing mountain ridges and could create its own weather. Overnight, racing out of control and unchecked. A miracle, police say. No one was killed. Tonight, this firefight still underway. A wall of flames jumping an interstate and now threatening homes.
Japan's most powerful storm for nearly 25 years, Typhoon Jebi finally makes landfall, ripping apart buildings and sending debris in Kyoto Station flying. With winds of up to 180 kilometers an hour, the full force of the storm struck Japan's western coastline, bringing with it torrential rain and disruption. Several thousand people were left stranded when water poured into Kansai International Airport. Little could be done to keep the floodwater out, and hundreds of flights have been cancelled. A tanker which had been sheltering from the storm careered into the bridge which links the airport to the mainland. The crew on board are said to be safe. The authorities in Japan have advised more than 1 million people to evacuate their properties. 1.6 million homes are without power. This is the latest in a series of severe weather systems to hit Japan in recent months. Typhoon Jebi has already claimed lives and caused dozens of injuries. Many here are now hoping for a break from the deluge.
Apparently, just this week, Russia has given the United States 2 stark warnings, claiming that they are prepared to attack an area where dozens of U.S. troops are currently located.
Russia says there are already militants in an area, which is protected by U.S. military. Officials claim the U.S.-led anti-IS coalition base at Al-Taim could be at risk. Given its location, the base constitutes a strategic point for the U.S., but Iran and Russia are competing for influence in the area. One U.S. official stated that we have absolutely advised them to stay out of Ant-Tif. We are postured to respond. The United States does not seek to fight the government of Syria or any groups that may be providing its support. However, if attacked, the United States will not hesitate to use necessary and proportionate force to defend U.S. coalition or partner forces. The officials did not disclose how the Kremlin sent its warnings to Washington, but they noted that Defense Secretary James Mattis and General Joseph Dunford are aware of the threat. It is believed a Russian-led attack against militants could come from one of their aircrafts or warships in the Mediterranean. According to sources close to the Kremlin, a task force of 10 warships and 2 submarines were off the coast of Syria last week. U.S. officials said they have not detected Russian ground forces in the past few days. And speaking of Syria, Reuters is reporting that France has stated they are ready to strike Syria if chemical weapons are used. France's armed forces chief stated, "We are ready to strike if chemical weapons were used again. They can be carried out at national level, but it's in our interest to do it with as many partners as possible." The prospect of an offensive on Idlib alarms aid agencies. The United Nations has said about half of the 3 million people living in the rebel-held areas of the Northwest have already been displaced. It estimates some 10,000 jihadists are in the area. While the United States and its allies have warned of a bloodbath, they have made it clear they would only intervene should they deem that chemical weapons have been used. And with all of that on the table, the Washington Free Beacon is reporting that Russian nuclear bombers were intercepted near Alaska again. 2 Alaskan-based NORAD F-22 fighters intercepted and visually identified 2 Tu-95 Bear long-range bomber aircraft flying in the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone south of the Aleutian Islands. A spokesman for the Northern Command declined to specify the distance the bombers flew from the west coast of Alaska to protect operational security. However, the 2 Russian bombers were intercepted and monitored by the F-22s until the bombers left the ADIZ zone. It goes on further to report that during this time, Russia is preparing for their largest military exercise since the Soviet Union, and U.S. intelligence agencies are closely monitoring the war games over concerns they could be used as cover for actual military attacks. During the Cold War, the Soviet-led Warsaw Pact military alliance drew up war plans that included the use of large-scale military exercises as the beginning point for a war against Western Europe. And finally, it reports that Stephen Blank, senior fellow at the American Foreign Policy Council, stated that clearly Russia is rehearsing a large-scale war. And Marine Times is reporting about 75 U.S. Marines are training with Swedish counterparts to conduct raids and operations in Sweden's complicated coastal terrain. The exercise, dubbed Archipelago Endeavour, is a run up to one of NATO's largest exercises in more than a decade. Known as Trident Juncture, slated to kick off later this fall. The Norway-hosted exercise is expected to include nearly 40,000 NATO forces and dozens of ships. But views from Moscow Moscow see the impending large-scale offensive and defensive NATO maneuvers in the Scandinavian region as a potential header for a war with Russia. Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman stated that the troops and equipment of the alliance members and individual partner countries will be used on land, at sea, and in the air to improve skills of defensive and crucially offensive operations in the northern latitudes in case of a high-intensity conflict with a comparable enemy. This demonstration of military potential will unfold in the immediate proximity to Russian borders and has a clear anti-Russian nature. It goes on further to report that tensions in the region already are on edge following a decision this summer by Norway to double the U.S. Marine rotational training presence to 700. Moscow warned of consequences and even described the move as an attack.